Hold on a minute.
Just a quick chat, Teddy, for Channel 31 KO Boxing. How do you find, I mean, you're an old school type of guy, how do you find now the way the boxing game's going with just the officiating? I mean, everything's improved except the officials. Why is that we can't get that area right? I mean, with so many decisions, and it does sometimes take away from the fans from turning up to fights when you get unpredictable results from officials that get paid good money to do that and are meant to be experts.
When you say everything's better, where is everything better in the sport? I'd like to learn too.
Dieting's better. Do
you think the fighters today are better than the fighters in the 30s or the 20s?
No, I don't.
So then everything's not better. But I would agree that you have things that on the surface theoretically could make things better. That doesn't necessarily resonate into something or become something that is better. It doesn't always work out that way. I mean, yeah, you have the medicine, you have technology, sports science that's more advanced. There's no doubts about it. But it's funny. You see all those things. You see guys, oh, we're on this program. We take tests about this, and we look at the electrolytes, and we look at the speculates and acculates and all kinds of things you never heard of before. And all this advanced, as you said, technology and opportunities to be better. And then you see fighters break down in fights, give in fights, get tired in fights. And then you hear a commentator, oh, he got tired, like Kovalev. Oh, he got tired. But they never take into account, did he really get tired physically? I mean, he's got all the advantages you just talked about. All those things that are at your disposal that weren't there in the 30s, the 20s, the 40s. And meanwhile, the fighters in the 20s never got tired. They didn't even know about proper diet. Some of them were too poor to even have the proper diet. 30s, 40s, never got tired. They went 15 rounds, 20 rounds, 30 rounds, 40 rounds. They didn't get tired. So it hasn't gotten better. In reality, in tangible, instead of just people like you talking, saying, oh, things are better. But in reality, no. And one of the things that you can't quantify, that guys like you don't understand, that you just can't put into a test tube or into a lab, is determination, intestinal fortitude, urgency, mental toughness. And the fighters back in those days, you got some fighters today that are very mentally tough, don't get me wrong, great. But on the whole, not as many as they were back in those days. They were all mentally tough because they had less options. They had to be tougher mentally. They had less choices. Sometimes when you get things better, like you just brought up, which is, I'm glad you brought it up. At the end of the day, it doesn't serve you in a better way because it makes things easier.
It makes you softer.
That's what you're trying to say. Along those lines.
It gives you
along
options.
Those lines.
Where the old fighters didn't have
That's the word I just used.
They didn't have the...
Exactly what I just said.
They need to put food on the table. Where now, the health benefits, everything's here.
Well, everything. Just what I think I laid out.
Well, what about age-wise? I mean, back then, fighters would be done by 35. Now you've got Pacquiao 38, Mayweather 40, still earning big paychecks.
See, your memory is very short. Archie Moore was in his 40s, 50s. So you had guys back in those days that fought late, too. You always had the special guys that were the exception to the rule. I mean, you had plenty of Bob Fitzsimmons, if you go back far enough. Great middleweight, light heavyweight champ. Incredible. As I said, the old mongoose, Archie Moore, all those guys. Harold Johnson fought late. I mean, some of our great heavyweight champs didn't win their title till they were late. You know, guys like Ezra Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott. They didn't get to the prime of their careers until they were in their late 30s. So, and Archie Moore went way beyond that.
Teddy, who's the toughest fighter you've seen determined-wise? Not the best, didn't have the most ability, but who's a guy you just thought, this guy could die in the ring if someone never helped him?
A lot of them. I've seen many of them. I mean, I've seen a lot of them. I mean, my guy, Timmy Bradley. I I mean, he's just tough. He's a pretty good place to start. Tough as they come. Arturo Gatti was pretty darn tough. Mickey Ward is right up there. That son of a gun. Woo. I commentated on a lot of his fights on ESPN. Talk about a tough guy. Wow. Carmen Basilio, go back. I have great reverence for a lot of the old fighters. Basilio, unbelievable how tough he was. Then he fought Sugar Ray Robinson, beat him once, then fought him a rematch, 15 rounds, loses a close decision with one eye closed from the beginning. One eye closed, like this. And, you know, nowadays they would have stopped him probably, but after the fight, you talk about real toughness and mentality of toughness. After the fight, the newspaper reporters that were there, they were trying to give him an excuse almost. Like they were saying, Carmen, do you think that it would have been different, you know, if your eye hadn't closed? Like you would have had a better shot if you had two eyes? Without even hesitating. Today they would have said, oh yeah, that's what did it. The referee also did it. And this did it. And Jupiter was in the wrong alignment tonight. You know, a lot of athletes, not just fighters, would make so many excuses. If a reporter gave them that opening, that opportunity to make an excuse, they would have ran with it. It shows you the mentality that there was no excuses and no, you didn't get brought up that way to think of making excuses. You were responsible for your actions. For what was ever in front of you, you were accountable, and that was your responsibility. What do you think his answer was? His answer to that reporter was, what are you, crazy? I had one good eye. Had nothing to do with it. My other eye was working fine. Where are you going to get men like that, people like that? Very few. Because not that they can't be that way today, and not that some aren't ready to be that way, but they're brought up softer. They're given ways out. In those days, you didn't get given ways out. It was demanded to behave and act one way.
Do you miss that, Freddie?
My name is Teddy.
Teddy,
if you
sorry.
call me, though, I won't do this interview because you don't know my
Teddy,
name.
sorry.
I mean, that's a little ridiculous. Freddie might have a different answer, but
Teddy.
But Teddy's answer would be, listen, I wasn't around in those days. I saw all those fighters in film with Jim Jacobs and Customado. So I was privileged to see the films of Henry Armstrong and all these guys, you know, from those days. They were just tremendous guys. But what I miss is the idea that people are accountable for their actions in society, in our country, in our world in general. That people make too many excuses for their lot in life. And one thing that success has shown us, especially in my country, in the United States, where if you're determined enough, if you're willing to work hard enough, no matter where you come from, you can find a way to be where you want to be. You really can. And what upsets me or gets me discouraged a little bit, disappoints me, is that there was a day when in our country, and I think it would serve the world in general, where people were responsible, brought up to be responsible for their actions. And when they got to a certain place in life, you couldn't blame this or that or that or this. You had to be accountable for the choices and decisions you made in life, no matter where you came from. And don't get me wrong, people can understand that you had a tougher time than that guy, but still you had the opportunity to make decisions that were your decisions. They weren't yours or yours or yours. They were your decisions, no matter where you came from. They were still your choices to make, to give into or to overcome. Your choice. And when you ask me that question, do I miss it? I miss a time in general, not in my sport of boxing, but in life, in the world, where people will stop blaming other people for things, will stop making excuses for whether it's their lot in life or their mistakes in life, and just find a way to be like it was years ago when there weren't excuses available, where there wasn't that mentality in society to make everybody a victim. Where, oh, you're a victim. Who's a victim? I mean, I come from the greatest country in the world, where anyone could become anything if you work hard enough, if you believe enough, if you don't give in. Nobody's a victim. Everyone has an opportunity. Some people come from tougher places, but everyone has an opportunity. And I'm just tired of people giving the ability for people to be weak instead of asking them to be strong.
That's a great point, Teddy. Now let's go into the today's fighters. Are they more skillful, and do they have better tactics than they did in the old days? I know they're not as tough because less options, but they're better athletes today. They seem to be bigger.
Better athletes doesn't always, my God, it doesn't always.
I'm not saying they're better fighters, but they're better athletes.
No, but better athletes. What's a better athlete? A better athlete, there's so many dimensions to that phrase, to that claim, to that statement. To be a great athlete, you have to execute. So you can be fast, you can be more agile, you can be more flexible, you can have more electrolytes in your system because of sports medicine, all those things. But if you don't use them, you're not a better athlete. I got news for you. When crunch time comes, when the moment comes, when pressure comes, that's what we look at. That's what we pay the money for, to see somebody under pressure, not in practice, not in theory. So when that moment comes, our athletes today, are they any better than the ones I just talked about in the 20s? No, they're not, because that's something you can't put in a test to, is the determination, the mental hardness and toughness to not give in. And so, yeah, you can shoot guys up with stuff which you shouldn't do, but people do it, and you can have all these kind of benefits and advantages and everything else. But if this ain't stronger, this is not going to execute when the moment comes, the tough moment, the heavy moment, the scary moment, the threatening moment, the moment of truth.
That's a great point you did make there, Teddy. Also, let's just go on boxing in general now. Who are the stars that you like to see? Who are the ones, necessarily don't have to be big names, but who are the old style fighters that you look back and they remind you of the older guys? Is there any out there at the moment?
There's not a lot, but I mean, there's a few. There's always a few. I mean, it's never going to be able to compare them to the old days, because the old days, these guys fought 300 fights. That ain't going to happen no more, ever again. So you ain't going to get that. You're never going to get guys like Sam Langford and Archie Moore and Henry Armstrong that fought, Henry Armstrong one time, I think he fought like 37 times in 1 year.
Holyfield was like that, though.
Well, he didn't fight 37 times in 1 year. No. Nobody did. No. But I mean, Holyfield's a throwback fighter, if you want to use that term. He didn't make excuses. He fought everybody and anybody, and he found ways to overcome, even when he wasn't as big as the other guy who was smaller. He found ways to overcome.
Wouldn't get bullied.
I mean, he wouldn't. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He wouldn't. You don't find ways to overcome if you get bullied. I got news for you. So yeah, I mean, he wouldn't submit. He wouldn't break down. Wouldn't make excuses. I mean, he was one of those guys. I got a feeling. You know who I think? He hasn't gotten to that point yet of full exposure, of seeing him in all those scenarios where we can say it like we do about Holyfield, because we saw him in so many situations. But I think Errol Spence is that. I really do.
Yeah.
I really think he's that person. I think he's that kind of ilk of a man, of a person. I really do.
That's a great call, Freddie.
Teddy! Not Freddie.
Teddy.
Yeah, you say Freddie one more time, and I'm telling you, go interview somebody named Freddie then.
I said Teddy.
No, you said Freddie.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Sorry. And if Costas Mandalor's ready, I think Teddy's going to land one on my chin next time.
No, I don't do that.
We've got a mutual friend in Costas Mandalor.
Yeah, we do.
Great guy. He's a big fight fan. You've looked after him at a few shows.
I've done what?
You've looked after him at a few shows when he turns up. Have you met him?
Oh, he's come to a few of my boxing shows.
Yeah.
Yes, I've definitely given him a seat.
One of our...
To sit at one of our shows a couple of times in the States.
Teddy, just to wrap this up, Where do you see boxing in 10 years' time, the way we're going at the moment? Because as you said, we are getting softer as a society. Will it still be a viable
Boxing's been around longer than any other sport. Been around, I mean, I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but it's like the shark and the cockroach. No matter no matter what's done to it, no matter how many mistakes it makes and the people around it, the administrators make, nothing kills the sport. It always around. It's been around longer than any other sport. I wish it would help itself more. It's the only major sport that doesn't have a national commission to look out for it, to apply rules and make sure the rules are executed, and that people are held accountable. There's corruption in the sport. I wish there wasn't. It definitely chases people away when you get these bad decisions, bad judges, that there's no way to explain their actions sometimes except two ways. It's either incompetence or it's corruption. There's no other way to explain it. And sometimes it's so bad that it can't even be incompetence because nobody's that stupid. So it has to be corruption. But you wish you could get rid of it. But despite all that, and again, there's no national commission to oversee it, to protect it, or to look out for it. And if you did have one, then I'd be scared to death anyway, because then I'd be scared you get the wrong people in there to run it. But baseball, football, basketball, they have commissions to look out for the sport, to promote the sport, to properly supervise, overlook the sport. But having said all that, this sport will persevere because there's one thing that no other sport can give you like this sport.
What's that, Teddy?
On one given night, no matter who your parents were, no matter what part of the world you came from, no matter how low in life you might have been, no matter how poor, no matter how stacked against things were against you, no matter what you had suffered, all of that, we always hear as we grow up, people say life's not fair. And there's no arguing with it. Sometimes life ain't fair. But with all of that having been said, on one given night, if a man is determined enough, trained well enough, believes enough, cares enough, he can get in that ring and he can even the playing field and make life fair. For one night, he can take all the things that are wrong in life, all the unfairness in life, where things aren't balanced properly, and he can make the playing field completely flat, and he can make himself world champion and have his hand raised in the air and say, I'm the best there is on one night. And there's no sport that can do that other than boxing. And that's why it'll always be around, despite the problems, despite the corrupt judges and the referees that sometimes don't know what they're doing, and the alphabet organizations that do nothing but steal money from fighters and fill their own pockets, all of that. And I wish I could do away with it, and I would if I could. But despite all of that, the sport, not the people around it, but the fighters, the noble warriors that get in that ring, there's something special.
Teddy, there's something special about you too, my friend. Your passion, your honesty, your credit to the sport. Thank you for coming to Australia first and being part of this big event, and great to meet you. Thanks to Costas Mandalore too for introducing us. My sincere apologies before about the other thing, but just enjoy Brisbane. Is it your first time here?
I've been to Sydney. I did the Olympics in 2000. I spent almost a month in Sydney for NBC, and it was beautiful. And the people were very, very nice. My first time in Brisbane, and I like the people. The ones I've seen, they've been true, regular people.
Have you tried Vegemite, that black tar thing?
No.
If you're a brave man, you should try that, Teddy. I think you're going to like it.
What is it?
It's just it's got like vitamin C in there, but it tastes like really often people don't have it.
I'll wait until after I do my show, just in case it kills me. At least I know that I would have done my job that I came here to do.
Well said, Teddy. Appreciate it. Thank you.